So I'd love to pivot now from kind of investor to founder, because you've made this transition. I've had a few other guests on the podcast that have made this transition, and I just find it fascinating because I think that founders that have an investor background bring just a different perspective and kind of set of mental skills to the table. But it's also something where I think as an investor on the outside looking into companies, and again, going back to this starting businesses early on, you can kind of have some perspectives that are a little distorted. So I'm curious, as you made that transition, were there big surprises? Were there any big aha moments that you had as you kind of moved from investor to founder, and with a lot more intensity than maybe you had previously?
Yeah, completely. I think coming as an investor, your job is generally to think and to generate ideas. And so I think actually it gives you a huge leg up when you're thinking about where is there an interesting business model? Where is there an opportunity to disrupt or think about a market or a segment very differently than other people? I think when it comes to building, it's harder for sure. I'm not an engineer. I'm a non-technical founder, and definitely there are engineering challenges. I was like, oh, that shouldn't be that hard. And, the opposite is very much true. I was really fortunate in so much as I was able to, first of all, I had what I thought was a decent understanding of my strengths and weaknesses, and was able to partner with an outstanding co-founder who was able to complement that and is really just a phenomenal operator and builder. So when I would come to him and say, we should build this, it should be really easy, and he was able to say, no, that's not easy at all. We should not do that. And then we have to rethink it and figure out the best way to kind of approach it. But I would say coming from an investment world generally, or coming from a different background, the most important thing is to surround yourself with great people. And that's probably the thing that just important as a founder in general, right? That's kind of my number one priority at Row, is to build a phenomenal team full of people that complement each other's skill sets. But yeah, there's definitely things that you overestimate or underestimate, frankly, too, and things that you think might be really hard that are actually not that hard when you're coming in from a different perspective.
Yeah, just on team quality, I've always found that, and it's incredibly difficult to do that consistently, to make sure that you've got just incredible people around you and incredible people in the right roles. But when you are able to do that, it solves so many challenges. It's like the meta solve that just makes everything easier and more enjoyable and more fun. I'm curious, one other question in that vein is, you talked a little bit about structured thinking, the approach you take in investing, and how you approach that job. And I'm curious, where do you focus and spend your time as a founder versus an investor? And are there any, primary differences there? I'm sure structured thinking still plays a role. I'm sure mental models, I'm still sure, kind of using it as thinking about how the world works. But can you talk a little bit about your focus and how you spend your time as a founder and company builder?
Yeah, I think there's some of that, but it's definitely a small percent. It's a lot at the beginning and then a lot less as you go forward. And then as you go forward, it's more about, at least for me in my limited experience, it's more about making sure that your team is aligned around those objectives, that you're really, really clear and concise in terms of removing noise, removing distractions, focusing on a single goal, and maintaining a super high standard for both yourself and for your team. One kind of good thing about, I think, the investment world that is helpful from a management perspective, and certainly hedge funds are not the best people managed places in the world, generally speaking, but is that you understand high performance environments and you understand how people work in high performance environments. And that's helpful in terms of thinking about how do you build a high performance team. The high performance people are substantially more productive than sort of lower performing people. And it becomes a self-reinforcing ecosystem, right? Where really high performance people want to work with other really high performance people, and high performance organizations, frankly, make more money. Therefore, you're able to pay your people better. Therefore, you're able to attract more high performance people. The caveat to that is you have to be somewhat disciplined in terms of sort of policing that and in terms of preserving that. Certainly, one of the firms I worked with was outstanding at that. And I think that was the primary reason for their success, was they were able to just attract the best people in the world and make sure they were really happy. That's what we're trying to do at Row as well. Very different space, very different vertical. But fundamentally, we believe that if we do that, frankly, that solves, frankly, all problems.
So I had one more question on the investor turned founder side. And that is one thing that you said, we were chatting before this interview, is just this idea, and this is definitely an idea that's rooted in investing, is when you're a founder in a business, is really thinking about the bets that you're making and trying to make asymmetrical bets. And I just thought you had an interesting perspective there. Can you talk a little bit about how you take that perspective and apply that at Row?
Yeah, the challenge when you're a founder that's probably different than an investor, assuming you're kind of doing things reasonably well, is you really only get one bet, or that's like the way to sort of think about it at a high level. In reality, that's not really true, right? Like you are constantly making bets every day with your time, with your resources, with your team. And so I think the biggest thing is to try to make sure that you're not just making one giant bet, right? You're not just putting it all in black. That doesn't mean you like spread your resources around and try to do tons of things at once, but it means that you try to move fast, iterate, and make sort of iterative sequential decisions based on information and sort of what happened. So I think it's really about like making sure that you're not basically making one big bet with whatever it is you're doing with 5 years of your life or something like that. And really just trying to break it into, okay, you have built a machine. That machine should be making good, positive expected value bets every day that it exists. And assuming you do that and you build your culture and your team in a way that that occurs, you really like improve your odds of overall success because you're no longer like as reliant on luck or as reliant on random events that do happen every single day.